Hey guys, welcome back to another Lore Olympus video. I am Dazzling Kate, and welcome back to my channel for those who are old here, and welcome to my channel for those who are new here. So, a lot of you guys watch my content, yet I haven't seen you guys subscribe to the channel, so if you guys could, right now, click that subscribe button and comment down below what character you think is the worst character from Lore Olympus. Do it right now. And don't forget to like the video. Anyways, aside from that stuff, let's get into today's video. The 5 worst Lore Olympus characters. I know my opinion is definitely going to annoy a good chunk of people that are part of the fandom. And it's for good reason, okay? It's for good reason. So let's begin with the first set of characters. Eros and Aphrodite. Now, I couldn't decide between the two of them, and I figured, well, since they're mother and son, might as well just pair them up in here. So, why are they like the first ones? Now, they didn't do anything too bad in Greek god terms, but in, you know, being reasonable people terms, it's like they kind of really took it far with what they did. So, the first thing that literally happens in the comic, which is Eros following his mom's orders by putting Persephone into danger by putting her into his Hades vehicle, not knowing what would really happen or if she's gonna, like, be freaked out by him or something else happening. They didn't know what he would have done. Like, Hades was already thinking about, getting with her the moment he saw her. So, if anything, they would just be giving her to him and it would just be acceptable. Like, it's not really a punishment per se. It would have been a little bit more punishable if they just did something at the party and just like humiliated Hades by, revealing that he was going to propose to Menthe or something. That would have been an interesting punishment because they would have known that Hades was dating Menthe, considering, that they can both tell when people have, you know what, due to their connection to lust and love and such, that kind of thing. But yeah, I really dislike them in terms of what they've done already in the comic, which, Eros gets slapped on the wrist and, becomes Persephone's flamboyant bestie because, we need the gay boy, even though he's not really gay. This is crazy, because Apollo was actually bi, but no, Eros needs to be the bi one, I guess. Like, what else would he be doing during that orgy, huh? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But yeah, Aphrodite is not even given a punishment or even asked to apologize. The only time we saw her was probably after Hades dropped off his dogs at like the dog daycare, and then they kind of talk off and on, and it's just like she doesn't really do much and doesn't even apologize to Persephone even after re-encountering her at her place. It's just, yeah. But they're literally just there to kind of just show how Persephone and Hades belong together and how nice and caring he is and all this other stuff. And they really don't learn. It's just, they're basically there to provide either comedic relief or just basically being the flamboyant bestie, which again, why? The Apollo was there the entire time, but I guess we can't have him be that because he's like the douchebag of the story, I guess. And yeah, they're number 5 for those reasons, for basically setting them up to begin with and not really giving a shit about what would happen. And I get it, they're Greek gods. They're going to do petty things. But it's just like it's kind of confusing how everyone wants to like shove this underneath the rug, and they always seem to bring in excellent points about other characters doing just as bad things and punishing them, but these two just get a slap on the wrist just because they're Aphrodite and like Eros. Anyways, let's proceed. The fourth one is Daphne. Now, a few of you are probably like scratching your heads, like, but Daphne's never done anything wrong. God, I really, really, I, I could really go on about her. I really could, but I'm gonna try and shorten it up because this is a, quick five character list, and I don't want to get too tangled up because I got that reserved for the last two. So let's start with, how she started off strong, but then she just kind of mellowed out near the end of the series. Her like interest, like her intrigue was like dead on arrival at that point. It's just like, oh yes, like hi, I'm Daphne, I'm Thanatos' like girlfriend now, and it's just like, yeah, basically she's Persephone 2.0 because we can't have diversity amongst the nymphs and prove that Persephone is, she's she's just there to prove that Persephone is everything and always right, blah blah blah. And as a victim, very supportive of her and standing strong with her. But the moment Thanatos goes through something traumatic or wrong, unless it's like given by Mente, of course, like then it matters. Then it matters because if she were to care about Thanatos, it would have to be if that Mente was involved. Sorry, I'm just like trying to move through these really fast, but also trying to like give out some explanations. But yeah, she's she just basically becomes Hades and Persephone 2.0 in their relationship, and it really just it was going somewhere nicely. Like at the beginning I loved it, but then over time when it got like into the future, like later on in the series, it just kind of fell flat because it just felt like Hades and Persephone 2.0, and we can't just have it be Thanatos and Daphne. No, no, no. It had to turn into like Hades and Persephone 2.0, and it really was bothersome because she went from a supportive person in Thanatos' life to someone who just brings in his like abusive, neglectful father, and it's just like, what the fuck? Even though she asked them to promise to not like, start anything with them, they still said like, it's basically his fault, despite Daphne most likely knowing that she was like what she was dealing with from Thanatos and from Hades. She understands Thanatos' story quite well, but Hades, it's just like, okay, like I guess you can come in because you're Persephone's boy toy, and it's just like, what the fuck? It's just ridiculous. And even during the conversation, she doesn't try and, you know, referee in some ways. You'd think for somebody who cared about that kind of health and someone's well-being, especially your boyfriend who is dealing with the trauma of his, adoptive father, you're just like, oh yeah, he can come in, just sit down, have a cup of tea, and just keep blaming Thanatos for everything, And she never apologizes for it. Like, what the fuck, bitch? Like, Thanatos has been through a lot. Well, we're just supposed to let it go because he's not Persephone, and Persephone deserves all that sympathy and shit, not Thanatos. Like, ugh, how disgusting. Like, Thanatos actually has problems? Damn! I didn't know that. But this just infuriates me because she was going off so well into her character when she was like, helping him out with Mente, and eventually he breaks up with Mente, and just breaking up as friends as well. And it's just like she was doing good, and then it gets to this point, and you're like, where the fuck did that character development go? Why is she just now suddenly letting the Hades decide what to do? Like, oh, is it because she's like friends with Persephone, or is it because you know? Hades is a strong figure. I don't know. It doesn't really explain much of anything. But I would have loved for her to actually stand up for her boyfriend and actually say, hey, yeah, you're the abusive piece of shit. Get fucked. Because, you can't control this realm. You can go get fucked somewhere else. That kind of thing. It's just like, it pissed me off when she didn't do that. She just exposed him to, like, Hades, even though she knew that he was not comfortable with him there. He was not okay with him being there. He basically said it, but she still let him inside the apartment anyways. That should have led to them both breaking up. No, like, I'm not apologizing for that. No, because that would have crossed a line in a relationship. If the roles were reversed, if Daphne was a guy and Thanatos was a woman, everyone would be like, "Oh my gosh, like he's so mean doing that to her." But no, Thanatos is fine because he's a guy. I mean, it even goes as far as, like, in the series to show that basically, oh, it doesn't really, like, matter about these guy issues. Like, that's a huge problem within the lore Olympus, like storytelling, is that the guy problems aren't as bad as the girl problems. Like, equality, am I right? Equ- and I know this is feminism, but, like, the whole thing is that we basically treat both sides with the same respect. But I guess it mostly matters with, girls only, because apparently focusing on guy problems is just a bad idea. Like, it's not like any of this trauma or stress is gonna turn them into abusive pieces of shit. Who cares about them? Like, what the fuck? Sorry, I'm just irritated because this is something I am very passionate about, and it's something I really hate seeing within story development, is that you see someone who does care and then they, like, backflip and they don't care about, like, the same issue for another person because, they're a dude. And it's so fucking infuriating because there could have been a lot of interesting story dynamics and interactions between Thanatos and Daphne, and comparing them to, like, Hades and Persephone's relationship to kind of show off, hey, this is a completely different relationship, not just like Hades and Persephone 2.0, which this is what basically is. You can't step away from Hades and Persephone without bumping into Persephone and Hades 2.0. Like, what the fuck? Anyways, I'm gonna take a quick sippy sip and remember, subscribe to the channel. I gotta let you guys know that because I notice the majority of the people watching my videos do not subscribe to the channel. And if you did subscribe, can you put your notifications on? That lets you know when I'm releasing a new video. It lets you know about, like, the community tab. It also tells you when these next stream is. So please, please do keep that in mind. Notifications and subscribing is very important for this channel, and that means a lot to me. So I'm gonna take a quick sippy sip. Anyways, let's proceed. Coming in at number 3 is Hera. Now, again, I know there's gonna be people pissed that I put Hera in here, but hear me out. Hear me out. So it's really interesting how she first started out as someone who cares for Persephone and found Hades' behavior not acceptable and creepy. And then suddenly she decides, hey, yeah, you know what? I'm going to give you what you wanted, even though I said specifically I wouldn't do that. And I said the same thing to my husband, that I wouldn't want to deal with the backlash Demeter gives me, even though now I totally deserve it because I decided to go against my own word. It's like, what the hell? What were you thinking? But yeah, we've noticed what has happened, and I would imagine with what Hera has and, the power that she has, that she would be able to tell that Hades and Persephone almost did sleep with each other the first time they met, almost taking advantage of Persephone in that situation. Now, I know some people might be like, but he didn't do anything to her. He didn't touch her, but he was thinking about it. And if he wanted to, he could have done it. So, yeah, don't. Don't blame me for thinking that, okay? So, anyways, the next thing would definitely have to be having her kids make her drinks. Like, again, I know they're gods. I know they're gods. I know they're basically immortal and stuff. But you'd think with your daughter Hebe making those drinks, that's a little bit like putting your own problems onto your kid and thinking this, thinking it's totally fine to just show off that you're drinking in front of your kids and saying it's totally acceptable, letting you basically think that drinking is part of the problem solving within your parents on a verge of divorce. And yeah, she's racist towards nymphs. I mean, she's shit talked Menthe plenty of times, and she probably has said more, but it's never really mentioned too much. But we got the implication that she doesn't really care for nymphs, and it's just kind of bothersome to me because at the end, when she ends up with Echo, it's just like, where the fuck did this come from? Did you resolve your conflict of being racist towards these nymphs, or are you just keeping her as a pet? I'm guessing you're most likely keeping her as a pet. That's the only thing I can really think of that makes sense in my mind. And I know some people might come at me and be like, but she's just like, she wasn't accepting because she was like, interested into them. And don't make any fucking excuses. That's just really weird that you think that, hey, she makes fun of them because, she's deeply in love with them and wants to be with them. And it's like, did she ever apologize to Mente? Hell no. Did she ever like acknowledge that she was a shitty ass person to Nymphs? Hell no. Did she develop and become a better person? Hell no. Like she never really does much of anything. And she doesn't even explain why she tried to set up Persephone and Hades. It's just like, oh well, I guess since I'm the goddess of marriage, I'll just set these two up and see how it goes. And speaking of which, since she's also the goddess of marriage, she did cheat on Zeus with Hades multiple times. And Zeus, to this day, I don't think he fucking knows. Like, I looked around and I couldn't even find any information that he knew that she was in a relationship with Hades. It's just kind of briefly, you know, set up in past chapters that these two did have a thing with each other and had done so for many years. It's just like, oh, okay. Did Zeus actually find out? And it was like, no, he didn't. It's just like, what the fuck? But okay. Oh yeah, this is probably my favorite one. She hid the fact that she set Persephone and Hades up and never, told Demeter, even though she didn't want to deal with that backlash that Zeus recommended she do it anyways. Like, this is so weird to me. Like, oh yeah, I didn't tell you I decided to set your daughter up with like one of my like, my brother-in-law. Isn't that fun? Like, isn't that fun at all? Like, they're together now. They're probably gonna get married, have kids, and I hope that's okay with you. And it's just like, what the fuck? No. No, no. She never even apologizes for that. Like, what the fuck? Like, a lot of these characters are on the list just because they either A, didn't apologize, or B, didn't acknowledge their mistakes. It's just like, it makes sense for why they're the worst characters in Lore Olympus. And I know some may argue with me because they want to bring up, but Apollo, but Mente, but Hermes. Well, not Hermes. I don't. I mean, Hermes. Yeah, maybe. If this was a top 10, he probably would have been on it, but it wasn't. Anyways. Yeah, and she's queen of the gods in divorce because she don't need no man, even though she has Echo, and it doesn't really help matters when it's not really like really fully explained. It's just like she she just is, okay guys? She just is because girl power, woman power, boob power, lesbian power. Like was she like always into him? Like I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, had she like? Not a lot of people reacted well with Hasty and Athena being in a relationship, but it's so weird thinking that they're not Persephone, that Hera and Echo just suddenly got into a relationship just because Rachel wanted like representation, even though there's plenty of stories in Greek mythology that could have provided such. But she didn't go with that route. She just thought it would be better to just force characters that had no connection in being together into a relationship. It doesn't make sense, okay? It does not make any sense. My mind's just like, it took me a while to kind of lay this all out to kind of understand what was going on. But, anyways, let's move on to number two. I'm gonna take another sippy sip. Okay. Number two. Persephone. Oh, guys, you saw this coming. You guys saw this coming, okay? You probably know who's number one, but let's go into the breakdown of things. So she started off flawed to a degree, but once she gets hired by Hades, all that's tossed out the window. She's now a sugar baby. Who gives a shit, you know? Who cares if she wants to study? Now she wants to get with Hades and, like, get all the good clothes, all the makeup, all, like, the sugar baby things that she needs because she's a little privileged, a little asshole. And, she manipulated the game in her favor about chess, like, being clueless about it. And she was just like, you know what? I'm going to use that to my advantage. And, proceeds to push the affair she's having with Hades as he's still dating Menthe. She did acknowledge it, you know, she did acknowledge it, but she didn't really do shit about it. She was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I know I should hold myself like accountable and responsible for this, but I just can't help it. But I'm gonna try." And she tries to be the better person, but really she doesn't stop Hades from, giving her attention, or she doesn't really set, like, even when she does set boundaries, they're always broken really fast, and it's fucking ridiculous because there's so much potential for character growth and development for her to understand, hey, maybe I was a dick. But yeah, she thinks she's the victim of the massacre despite her and Demeter and Hermes covering up the act of wrath and lying about it for like the next year. She deals with the guilt of her nymph friends, but they're quickly forgotten after the trial. Like they served their purpose after that. They were just there to make Persephone feel kind of relatable, but really she wasn't, and now she just doesn't give a shit, as well as not giving a shit towards her, family of nymphs and friends of nymphs that show up for that like small period of time at Hades' home and trying to be a cutesy wootsy family to show she has a family. It's just like she is a robot and these are just people she hired to make it look like she cares. But really, she does not care. She does not care at all. Oh yeah, and she proceeds to turn Menthe into a plant just because she told Zeus the truth about Persephone's act of wrath. And you know, it's totally fine because Menthe was just telling everyone that her and her mom just decided to form an act of wrath. I mean, it was an accident, but she needed to take, Menthe decided to take things into her own hands and be responsible about it. Yes, it did work out in her favor, but it's also because if she didn't, then who knows what would have happened to Menthe after that. Menthe was just worried about surviving, which Persephone can deal with because, Persephone's a goddess. She's gonna always have that guarantee. Anyways, she doesn't acknowledge how manipulative Hades really is and just tries to play it off as him being a cinnamon roll. Like, he's totally sweet, guys. Like, look at his daddy and mommy issues, guys. He's so adorable. He tried to kill people for me. How nice of him. It's so nice. And it's like, what the fuck? Oh yeah, and she thinks her punishment is unfair despite it being light for what she's done. She could have gotten 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, but no, 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 no. Zeus had to make it 10 years. Oh yeah, and her evil acts are played on by placed on by Eris because, reasons. She's too perfect. It's not her fault. She was just gifted like the wrath inside of her. That's what. Oh, and she, even after bringing Mente back, she never apologizes to her for turning her into a plant and trying to understand maybe, just maybe, she was trying to live and make sure that nobody else got hurt because of her. Yeah, those seem like logical reasons. I'm sure Persephone would have done it had she found out about somebody performing an act of wrath. Hmm? Yeah, and oh yeah, my favorite part is when she bullies her former classmates because they didn't believe her and thought, oh yeah, it was totally fun for my romantic partner to, almost kill your roommate. Like, holy shit. And oh yeah, you logically being afraid of me because my boyfriend did that to your friend. Like, oh yeah, that's totally cute. And just making him feel like shit for a decade long period of time where at this rate he probably doesn't even remember you too well, and it's just ridiculous. And of course she picks that habit up from Hades, but it's totally acceptable because they're cute and perfect for each other and they love tormenting people. Okay, my other favorite thing is when Lucy, Louis, Luce tries to initiate an affair with Hades, only for Persephone to break into her house, and she doesn't want to kill her because she doesn't want to deal with the paperwork. But we all know she would have killed her anyways if paperwork wasn't a problem, even though she could just bring a worker of Hades to do all that paperwork for her and make up some bullshit reason for why she was murdered to begin with. That kind of thing. But I guess since her father is a Titan, technically, it would have caused trouble anyways. So, oh, and she steals Dionysus from Zeus, despite him having a plan and the kid being his. She's just like, no, I'm gonna take him because fan service. And because he's cute, and we don't really care about him after that. Like, sh even when they have their second daughter, he's not even there to be supportive for being a temporary kid of hers. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, whatever. I mean, I guess it's just really ridiculous because you just kind of have to understand how stupid this is. Like, oh yeah, I stole your kid, Zeus. Like, aren't you happy? Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take him and raise him as my own, even though you had a logical plan to do it yourself, and you could have just she doesn't even give him that much attention. He's only there to essentially be a fan service baby for people to be like, oh, look at how nice Zeus, not Zeus, Hades and Persephone is, but they're adoptive little boy. And then he's not even remembered at the end. Like, what the fuck? Oh yeah, and she doesn't apologize to her mom, despite her mom being worried about her and being concerned for her well-being, and having a logical reason for being concerned about her being in a relationship with Hades. But okay, fine, fine, fine. Oh, and the absolute thing that describes Persephone from head to toe is that she refuses to take no for an answer. Like, if you tell her no, she's just gonna get into your face. She's gonna have Hades get into your face until you give her what she wants, which is fucking ridiculous when you really think about it, and how ridiculous the development she goes from being a shy girl to this bossy bitch that doesn't really have any control of herself because of her act of wrath that was given to her by Eros. Oh, how tragic! Oh no! But yeah, that's what makes Persephone the second worst character. But she's not gonna outdo the first one, which is going to basically be Hades. Yeah, you guys saw this coming. I know you guys did. And despite that, I'm just pretty satisfied with knowing some of you guys are probably going to be like, "Oh, but that doesn't make it fair. What about Apollo and all these other characters that affected the relationship?" I'm using what they've done already and trying to basically explain how they're kind of the worst people to want to relate to. But yeah, yeah, from the very beginning, Hades is already a douchebag. He's a prick. He doesn't care about anyone but himself and his needs. And, he's always hanging out with his brothers, who he doesn't even try to pull out, pull them out of like flirting or hanging out with other women. He just kind of like sits there and lets them do it. Like, okay, sure, you're so supportive, Hades. How nice of you. Oh yeah, and he already targeted Persephone from the very beginning, even though he was gonna propose to Menthe that very night. But no, 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 no. Menthe was too scared, and now with Persephone, he could have just, you know, he could find someone he could really connect with. Her body. And, already 3 days in, and he's already in love with her. Like, what the fuck? That doesn't sound healthy, but okay. Has an affair with Hera. He already attacked a paparazzi member, even though he and Persephone just met, and there's barely five conversations to their name at that point when it does happen. Like, literally less than five conversations, and he's already pulling people's eyeballs out for her. Like, what the hell? And one of my other favorites is probably the fact that he never stood up for Menthe to, Hera and anyone else who spoke badly about their relationship or her. He just kind of lets it be. He knows it's happening. He knows it's happening. He just lets it happen, which is pretty damn depressing when you really think about it. Menthe, just being in this relationship, trying to survive and, try and keep her job and hoping that she can proceed with her life. Oh, sorry about the yawn, guys. It's kind of tiring to get into, but, anyways. It's just so weird that he never once stood up for her. But for Persephone, he will go to the ends of the earth for her. Like, what the fuck? And it's really funny because throughout the entirety of the series, we do see Persephone kind of fulfilling a role that Hades wants her to take, which is basically being Menthe 2.0, which to some degree we do see similar looks that she's worn throughout the series and how they're similar to a lot of like Menthe's looks. It's just so fucking ridiculous because I feel like he's trying to fulfill some kind of sick need, but we'll continue on that a little later. And of course, he often mistreats his citizens and his employees. Like, he's literally picking up small, defenseless female citizens just because they're wearing his, like, girlfriend's or mistress's home. Like, oh, I guess. I guess. And of course, he's often mistreating his own employees by basically threatening them and making sure they don't get to keep their jobs if it's against Persephone or him in any way whatsoever. Yeah. Oh yeah, and does the same thing for Persephone, but probably 10 times harder. Yeah. Complains that he's unapproachable because, all of the above that I just said, all of what he's expressed so far. Like, would you really want to approach him? I wouldn't. Nobody else I know wouldn't. It's just common sense. Like, maybe if you just acted a little nicer and gave your employees a raise or respected them even and you apologized to Menthe about your shitty behavior, maybe, just maybe, people might actually approach you and be like, oh, cool. But no, 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 no. It's everyone else's fault, not his. I mean, even as far as Zeus or Poseidon to ruining his reputation. Like, we see that in the very few, like, in the first few episodes, that Hades is already blaming those two for ruining his chances with Persephone. Yeah. But as we continue on, He basically makes Menthe codependent on him by, owning her apartment and other necessities that he pays for and being her boss. Basically, he's holding all the cards in place and she is powerless against him. And I know some people might be like, but she did this to herself. She got into a relationship herself. And it's like, yeah, but do you really expect it to go this far where basically he owns your apartment, he is paying for your necessities, he is giving you the job that you have right now, and he expects you to basically do whatever he says to basically fulfill some kind of sick need? And I know some people might be like, but he's in love with, like, he loves his girlfriends. He loves those who he's close to, and it's like, yeah, but it feels like he has different intentions than just them being girlfriends. There's so much more than just that. I got it. I'm just like, this is still a lot. I'm looking at the list and I'm like, shit, this is a lot. But yeah, probably has a weird mom thing for any nymphs and Persephone based off nature. Like, literally, Menthe is a river nymph, and Persephone is a goddess of spring, which is very identical to what his mother is, and basically connects that to, connects the dots, makes it connected, and basically, sorry, and basically makes it so it kind of seems like he only likes them based off of the nature aspect, as well as the idea that he probably wants them to fulfill a kind of motherly role of being sweet and nice to him. I mean, that's basically what Persephone is when they first meet, so it's kind of a little weird that he's like, he's going out of his way for her, and it feels like really weird to me when you really make the comparisons and how identical they look to each other. It's just like, okay, what the fuck is going on here? Oh yeah, and of course we have to bring in my other favorite reason for why Hades is a huge dick of them all. He took Thanatos in reluctantly, and this is probably, that was his probable only chance of being a dad. Like, if you really think about it, most of like the people before that he's dated or Menthe, he never really had a chance due to being sterile, and of course, maybe he learns about that later, but I'm also like, well, during the time when Thanatos was first introduced, it's a little surprising that, he wasn't like, oh, wow, this could only be my only chance of fatherhood, because I'm sure at the point where Zeus and Poseidon probably already had kids, and with Thanatos just being dropped off like that, it's like, what the hell? Like, this could probably be your only chance at having a kid, so maybe do something with it. No, 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 no. He decides to abuse and neglect Thanatos as he grew up, and acting of food and clothing and housing is the only thing that a child really needs. No love, warmth, respect, and just basically a little bit of kindness makes it go a long way. It's what I really dislike about Hades is that we're supposed to sympathize with him because of his daddy issues. But when Thanatos has daddy issues, it's walked all over because he told everyone on, like, he told Persephone to, like, Zeus and her act of wrath and blah blah blah. And why is he being punished for basically doing the right thing, for basically doing the protocol that Hades most likely told him to do if, like, he's heard of something and needs to report it to someone, most likely go tell the highest of the authorities in case, like, something like this happens. Because, in the realm of gods and goddesses, there's a probable chance that there could be somebody hypnotizing another. So telling Zeus, who is the power, like, the most powerful being in all of, like, the world. So you're telling me, you're mad for him telling your brother that you most likely could have been hypnotized or manipulated to become a slave to someone. Like, that's the best way I can really describe it, but it's just like, ah. And, he bullies Thanatos at work, never apologizes for it. It's like so much worse when you realize, he's his son, technically, adoptively, and he basically harasses his own kid at work, despite him most likely trying his best, and with Hermes being involved at bringing all these souls from like the Act of Wrath to the underworld. I'm kind of surprised that you would think there would be paperwork having to go back to that. And maybe Thanatos being like, "Hey, this doesn't make any sense." Like, we could have had him act a little bit more like surprised, like, "Hey, I know a lot of these deaths and some of them look very off." Like, he could have been like some kind of reader and going through a lot of these like paperwork things that Hermes brings back, and he's just like, "They all seem to have the same story. What the fuck is going on there?" And I think that would have been a more interesting attempt to kind of bring Thanatos into understanding, "Hey, yeah, this doesn't add up." I wish there was a scene where Thanatos brings it up to Hades, because Hades, yeah, he is a judge technically, but the problem I would imagine, if they have like super divine detailed god powers to look into every single situation, like in these cases, I would imagine maybe Thanatos knowing like a lot of people's paperwork, and I would imagine if he was really raised by Hades, he would be a little like he would have some organization of giant amounts of folders in like filing cabinets of all of these different, people's deaths. And it doesn't make sense to me that he wouldn't really know, because he's technically the one going to like different locations. And I know Hermes is the one bringing in the ones that were already damned, but I would imagine him having some kind of involvement in reading some of this paperwork, because I would imagine maybe, just maybe, some of these things are suspicious in themselves. Like, these people who are working under him probably having a bit of idea of how it's working and how it's not working and how connecting, like, there's literal employees in these kind of positions where they're analyzing data like this. You're not telling me Thanatos isn't looking at that and bringing that kind of stuff on his own to like Hades and being like, "Hey, yeah, I'm the god of you know of death. I kind of know what these things do." Like, why is like all these like people, like, he could have brought it up in that meeting, like, how come all these deaths are connected to this one act of wrath? And that would have been an interesting way to kind of bring it up. But I'm now talking about this right in the middle of like a five forced character like video. Oh my god. Yeah. But anyways, moving on from that, he never really considers Thanatos' feelings after meeting him in his home and still blaming him for what he did, even though, it's technically his fault. And, manipulating the situation by bringing up his own daddy issues and making Thanatos feel bad. And, later on gives him a sandwich. I mean, that makes up for all the years of neglect and abuse. A sandwich. But yeah, I'll finish this off with a bang. He will most likely cheat on Persephone, since she served her purpose of giving him hairs. So why should he really keep her? Hmm? And it's kind of funny that he didn't think to include Thanatos or Rhea, like Rhea in Rhea, to witness his second daughter's birth. Like, hey, yeah, you could have made up years later, and Thanatos would have joined, like, joined in, and Rhea would have been there to like see her like second grandchild. Yeah, what's with that? Like, I guess Hades and Persephone just didn't want them there because they're not part of the family. Anyways, guys, that is it for now. Hopefully you enjoyed, and if you did, and if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button. That would mean the world to me. Anyways, stay safe, stay cool, and most importantly, guys, stay hydrated. This is Dazzling Kate, signing the hell out of here.